Hello everyone and welcome to a very special episode of Wild Your Garden, because in this video I am actually on my honeymoon in Scotland, in the depths of the Scottish Highlands, a magnificent part of the world, and I couldn't help but want to bring you guys a video of some of the incredible grounds and gardens that are part of this estate, shall we like, this 5,000 acre estate which is on the edge of a loch, and this house is just magnificent. So don't worry, I'll be putting in some shots of that, but today we're going to be looking at some of the features found within these 5,000 acres, and my goodness have I got a video for you. So stick around, because some of the features we're going to be looking at include a woodland walk through ancient woodland. We've got magnificent old trees such as the Scots pine you can see behind me in the distance. We've got a walled garden, a kitchen garden, formal gardens, terrace gardens, meadows, wildlife ponds, you name it. Oh, and we've even got a secluded little private boathouse that we're going to take you down to have a look at, and some incredible viewpoints of Loch Etive behind the house, which is just stunning. It's absolutely sensational. So stick around now as we walk through some of the incredible grounds that come along with this beautiful house. So our first stop are these magnificent walled gardens behind me and the kitchen garden. So let's go through that beautiful little rose arch now and take a look what's inside. Isn't this just the most inviting entrance to a wall garden you've ever seen? I suppose it would be rude not to start with this magnificent rose, guys, because apart from the sound of a nuthatch in the background, all I can hear is the sound of bees, hoverflies and other insects in this garden. Just wonderful. Right, let's carry on the tour. So you can see the area is divided by this central pathway, and we're going to go right first, past this absolutely stunning geranium, which is just gorgeous, has these lovely dark centres. And we're going to head into this mini wildflower meadow, which I just love. And actually, I bumped into one of the owners when we were walking around the grounds a couple of days ago, and he said this is the first area they've trialled with a meadow mix. They have obviously natural wildflower meadows around the rest of the grounds, but this they've clearly rotivated and seeded with some annuals. So you can see all the reds of the poppies, the blues of the cornflowers, and some of the whites of the corn chamomile, and it's just gorgeous, looking very good in its first year. Loads of insects through it, and if I get down you get a real feel. Oh, right on cue, look, meadow brown. Don't you just love it when nature acts on cue? And there are some fabulous plants in here, as you can see, and when you get down you get a real feel for the colours. This lovely pink, almost sort of sedum like plant, looking at the flowers, is I believe a little plant called redshank, which is actually an annual, but it's making up this lovely bouquet of colours. Just so peaceful here. Absolutely stunning. If I come over to this side, you can see we've got a nice little block of poppies here. There's some bees visiting over there. And it looks rather splendid, I think. And these gorgeous corn marigolds. Absolutely vivid yellow colour. Not bad for a first year. And I had recommend that he rotivates. Oh, and I've just spotted a meadow brown trying to hide from me. Just there in the middle. He's obviously just warming up. They have this distinctive eye spot on the underside of the forewing. And they really do make up some of the British butterflies' most numerous species in terms of butterflies you can find in a meadow in the UK. I love this mowing path through the middle here. Yeah, so I did recommend that he rotivates and seeds this area every autumn so that he gets this absolute riot of colours, because it really is glorious. Because you need to do that obviously to have the full benefit of an annual mix like this year on year. If you just leave it, it will revert to more perennial species such as the buttercups, knapweed, oxeye daisy. Fabulous area. I'm not sure what this area is used on the other side, used for on the other side of the fence. Probably not bowls by the undulations in the ground, but perhaps little parties. And look at this. This is a sign of the air clarity around here. Look at these lichens growing on this post. They don't do well in polluted areas, mosses and lichens, so telltale sign that we have very clean air around here. So I'm going to walk back now along this side of the area. We've got a nice dogwood there, which looks to be going to berry now. Some lovely astrantia. Astrantia is very good for hoverflies. And what looks like some Jacob's ladder, which is just about going over now. But a lovely plant. Yeah, this astrantia, very, very good for hoverflies. And bees as well. And apparently, soldier beetles. The two mating pairs on there, look. And then we have a nice mix of some, no doubt, naturalised ferns at the back. Scotland, with its damp, cooler climate, is perfect for hostas and ferns. They are everywhere in this garden. While in the landscape in general, the ferns are just found throughout. Then in this part of the border, we've got some of these beautiful candelabra primulas. Part of the family that are our cowslips and primroses, as you can tell by these big leaves, which just look like giant primrose leaves. But these candelabra primulas, very, very beautiful. We'll come on to some more of those later on. They actually like it damp, so there's some by one of the wildlife ponds. Yeah, so stick around guys, because there are lots and lots and lots of habitats we're going to explore today. As I've already said, this is just one of them. And it really is a fabulous place. Some astilbe in the back there, which is this vivid pink at the moment, looking absolutely beautiful. One of the many dry stone walls at the back there, as you can see, framing this garden, just adorned with ferns. Just beautiful. Some maidenhair spleenwort, the little tiny fern in there, which is one of my favourites. Buttercups, unfortunately for you garden lovers as well, like it damp, so as you can see they are spreading through the border. But I think it's nice to have a mix. It's nice to have a mix of natives, non-natives, and just let it do its thing, because it's so beautiful to see the variety of plants in this place and the amount of insects that therefore are following. And one thing I should have said about the meadow while I was on it is, if you just look to my right, it's so nice to see all this self-heal being left. I know it's part of the meadow, but self-heal normally ends up, sadly, like this little chap here, and this one, mown within an inch of their life within a lawn, and they barely get above an inch or two when they flower. So really nice to see it here. Bees absolutely love this stuff. It's one of the best plants you can have for a flowering lawn, and I love it as well. I think it's great. So it's really nice to see. This is kind of at its eventual height, so you can see it's not huge. It's only maybe 8 inches tall at its tallest, but a really nice plant if let to flower. So I would strongly recommend you guys let some of this stuff go in your lawn. Leave some patches, it won't let you down. Some geraniums there, a little bit like the Wargrave pinks. A bit of bracken as well. I'll be coming on to the difference between bracken and ferns in a little while for any of you that are a little unsure as to the difference. We have some beautiful red astrantia here as well, which is just stunning. I say red, it's more of a maroon colour, but just gorgeous. And down here, one of my favourite plants for a lawn, this little fox and cubs, which is just there's no other plant really that I know that grows in the UK that is a native that has this vivid orange colour. It's just stunning. When you get a sea of that, it's like nothing else really. Oh, and I nearly went past this little thing that's crept into the border, which is a common spotted orchid, which is a lovely specimen. You can see it's just starting to flower. There are actually lots of common spotted orchids, and at one of the viewpoints we'll look at where we explore the expanse of loch behind this house, there are absolutely dozens of orchids growing naturally in the sort of scree slope, so it's beautiful to see. So we'll come on to those. So we're back to the gate with that fabulous arch, and possibly even more fabulous rows above it. So I'm going to head left now, and we've got some of this classic garden plant, which is the Alchemilla mollis, which has a really lovely ability to kind of hold water in the form of droplets on its leaves. I mean, look at that, that's just stunning. After a rain, this plant really does look its best. And it has these lovely little delicate flowers. Very nice plant that naturally self-seeds its way around the driveway here quite nicely. It does do very well in rocky places. Again, these lichens, apologies for any of you botanists who are lichen experts. I'm obviously not an expert, but you can just see again the quality of the air around here. Lots more Alchemilla mollis, as you can see. A few native foxgloves currently being visited by one of the bees, which I love the way they back out of these tubes and then go to the next one. Right on cue. No better case in point for foxgloves being very attractive for bees. Not really used by butterflies, because of course the butterfly wouldn't be able to climb into the tube like that as easily. But these are the native foxgloves, because they are just purple and the leaves are slightly darker and more narrow than perhaps some of the garden derivatives that you might get in your local garden centre. Of course, foxgloves come in many shapes and sizes these days. You can even get perennial ones. The native is a biennial, but the perennial ones can be almost as attractive, but I just love these natives. Do very well in rocky places. I'm not 100% sure on this plant, but it's got some rather interesting foliage. The leaves look like meadow sweet. In fact, I'm not so sure that's not a variety of meadow sweet, because that is just beautiful. The flowers look very, very similar to the native. If I turn this way, we've got a nice mix of shrubs, rhododendrons again, on the edge of this left-hand side of this walled garden. And up here is one of the most magnificent, what I believe is an Escallonia tree, which is humming with insects at the moment. The trunks on it must be 4 inches across. Oh, here we go, here's a little tag. Leptospermum Cunningham I. So if you know your Latin a bit better than I do, you'll perhaps be able to tell me. That's a beautiful plant, and the flowers are gorgeous. These lovely reddish centres. Almost looks like a strawberry flower, and if you listen, it's just alive with bees up there. So moving on, you've got these lovely bamboo wigwams, which are, oh, Red Admiral, literally just landed on my finger. That's obviously come off that beautiful buddleia that we'll look at in a sec. Oh, there he goes. He's up and around the buddleia. And actually there's another one just there, if you can see. I was going to come onto the buddleia in a moment, but since I am being suitably distracted by the Red Admiral, it'd be nice to mention that. The bees using this buddleia a lot at the moment. Buddleia, obviously, a bit of a contentious issue. A lot of people say it's non-native invasive, but I think in a garden setting it's a brilliant addition. Obviously known as the butterfly bush. I have done a previous video of it many moons ago when I looked about 12. So have a look at that one if you haven't seen it on the channel. And this is a lovely hydrangea called Annabelle, which I've just planted in my front garden, either side of my insect hotel. If any of you guys have been watching that transformation, then if you haven't, then go to the playlist and go to my garden and have a look at some of the videos I've been making on my front garden. I've created a 20 square metre wildlife garden, including a pond, mini meadow, herbaceous borders, insect hotel, native little woodland belt, coppice belt hedgerow. It's, yeah, got a bit of everything. So go and enjoy that one. And also, it's got some of this stuff, which is being used a lot by the bees, which is hedge woundwort. Wildlife really is acting on cue today. Hedge woundwort, really good for a shady spot. It is a native to the UK. I also plant marsh woundwort around my ponds a lot that I create. And to the left, I don't know if this is the true native, but it's certainly a geranium with a lot of impact. Could be Johnson's Blue. Obviously the native is the meadow crane's bill, along with a few others. But yes, this geranium, a lovely colour at the moment. So yes, hydrangea Annabelle, lovely buddleia there. And as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted before the Red Admiral. There are these lovely wigwams of beans, runner beans at the moment, going up those, which is really nice to see. The flowers of which are classic vetch shape. Really interesting and such a beautiful red colour. Try and get the camera to focus. There we go. Lovely colour on those. So yeah, this buddleia currently being visited by many bees. It looks like one of the true native, what I would call bomb site buddleias. That lovely classic lilac colour. And what about that for a Scots pine behind it? littered with deadwood. A magnificent tree. This house actually dates back to around about 1850, so a lot of the trees in here are 150 to 170 years old, so it's really quite incredible. Now, a bit of a veg area for those of you that grow your own veg. What do we have here? Looks like some carrots there, bit of radish, and lots of potatoes. Potato, obviously part of the potato family, is a plant called deadly nightshade, which has flowers very similar to this. The hoverfly there, thinking, why is this flower suddenly moving? It was still a minute ago. Well, yeah, these flowers are quite attractive, obviously to a lot of pollinators as well. Then we've got a row of currants, what look like black currants along there. Lovely little greenhouse. Nice little utility area. And along here, a bit further along, I'm going to show you, I wish you guys could smell some of the aromas from this garden. One of the best plants for smell in this garden, or scent in this garden at the time of year. There's the red admiral. I knew I'd be able to spot him. He thinks he can hide up there. Look. But sunning away. Quite a fresh specimen, that one. On top of that cotoneaster. Butterfly is obviously cold-blooded, so they need the warmth of the sun's rays to become active. And if you can hear that. Beautiful. Almost sort of sad tones of a siskin. We'll hear and see, well, might not see so many, but we'll definitely hear lots of those when we go on our woodland walk in a little while. But these Scots pines, just magnificent trees. Right, let's press a bit further on to, well actually, before I do, have a look at this. This is an evening primrose, which is just a beautiful flower. I had some bees visiting this yesterday. And these things, you can literally watch them opening up at dusk. So each one of these flowers, or most of them, they will begin like this, almost like a spiral, and then they'll just open their way out come the evening. Very good for moths, that plant. A nice perennial, and you can see last year's stems been left, which is brilliant, which means some of the birds will no doubt use those. Again, the lichens in here, just absolutely dripping with this gorgeous sort of almost mint green. Reminds me of like mint aero colour, chocolate bar in a way, not quite as vivid, but gorgeous colour. Then we've got an absolutely stunning fuchsia, now that the sun's gracing us with its presence. There's a bee at the top there visiting, which is probably a garden bumblebee or white-tailed bumblebee, I'm not sure which. And we've got a little common carder bee here as well. Again, just so nice to have the peace and tranquility and be able to hear all the insects over the noise of what is normally traffic or wherever I'm working around the country. So if I look to my right now, you can see we've got this little mini orchard area, which is very, very lovely. Obviously these are young trees, so that's yet to establish. Beautiful rose there in full flower at the moment. And this bush, which I did plant ID yesterday and I've completely forgotten now, but just look at the flowers on that. It's just stunning. And the bees were all over this a couple of days ago. You see there's a hoverfly visiting, but a really good plant for insects. Looks like there's a wasp visiting it now. Several wasps actually. And now we move on to currently the best smell of this garden, which is these beautiful Philadelphus flowers, which, forgive me guys, oh yeah, still smells divine. Really lovely bush. More will still be there. A bit of Rose of Sharon, the common name at the back there. And here we have this really nice campanula, which is very, very good for bees again. Campanulas, obviously the native ones we have, such as our harebells. Lovely flower that. The big cotoneaster there going to berry. Moving along to one of the more stunning shrubs at the moment, if I stand back a bit, is this hydrangea. I'm not sure which variety it is. It is lovely how there are labels on this garden around a lot of the trees and shrubs, and that is just glorious at the moment. These huge white pom-poms. Being visited by a lot of hoverflies by the looks of it. If I go in a bit closer, you can see you couldn't get a more pure white than that, I don't think. Another siskin with that kind of lovely call that is. More cotoneaster, more of these shrub roses which have finished flowering now and already have hips on. And next off, we're going to head down through that gate towards one of the two main wildlife ponds. So stay tuned for that one, guys. But I just want to have a quick wander back down through the central path, past these two absolutely magnificent hostas. I'm not sure I've seen hostas that high. That one there must be 3.5 feet high. Quite incredible. Lovers of the damp ground, as I say. A lot of herring gulls around here. I'll show you where their main colony is. This is nice to see. Some of last year's stems of purple loosestrife, and the purple loosestrife yet to flower. You can see the fresh stems coming up here. Purple loosestrife, as you know, one of the main components of any wildlife pond that I create. But just looking down here, look at these flowers of this hosta. Absolutely beautiful. They really do like damp, cool conditions. And if you can get them looking like that, then you've obviously had a bit of luck and not had too many slugs and snails in your garden. They're an absolute favourite of slugs and snails, as you know. Now look at this, now we've warmed up a little bit. The amount of activity around this astrantia. Some of these incredible flies. I'm by no means an entomologist in terms of flies and hoverflies, but they are all over this astrantia right now. So yes, purple loosestrife, as you can see, lovely block of it there. That's going to be an absolute riot of colours in another week, perhaps, maybe less. It's already flowering down south back in Essex. It was flowering before we left to get married last week. And here you can see there's a lovely Veronica or Veronicastrum that's just about to flower. Lovely white buds. Really, really good for insects as well, the Veronica family. Trying to get through this almost as quickly as I can for you guys. Excuse me. Because I've got so much to see or show you, but equally I want to do this garden justice because it is just stunning. Now I'm not 100% sure what this is, but it has a lovely dark leaf. Perhaps some of you might be able to tell me. The flower is almost that of a tormentil or cinquefoil. Not sure what that is, but Lovely plant again, lots of hoverflies. Hoverflies I feel a bit sorry for because we seem to forget about them as a pollinator because they're not the most attractive things in the world. They're not as vibrant as butterflies or as, dare I say, cute as bees. But they are just a vital pollinator nonetheless. And I wish I was here to see this block of vegetation in a few weeks, which looks to be a variety of aster. Now, asters are more commonly known for their kind of yellow centres and purple leaves, but I just would love to see what colour this lot turned out to be in a few weeks' time. Maybe not even that. Beautiful. And then we have this lovely central archway, metal archway, gorgeous feature with that beautiful rose going up it. Again, so many rose varieties, I'm not even going to begin to get into try and ID them, but I'll give it a sniff on the way round. Oh yeah, that smells divine. I can assure you. And while I'm here at this bit of a crossroad before we round up the walled garden down there, I'm going to take a little nosy into the greenhouse. Why not? I've got to see a little bit of rhubarb down there and some rosemary. Rhubarb, actually, I did know this already, but when just after we got married, we had a walk around the gardens in Alnwick in Northumberland, and that was one of the plants in their poison garden. Alnwick is world renowned for its poison garden, and the leaves of the rhubarb are actually lethal to humans, although you'd have to eat about a wheelbarrow full, I believe, which would take some doing. The stems, of course, are very edible. Now, that's just a quintessential greenhouse, really, isn't it? Perfect. Organised chaos. That's what I think. So it looks like the varieties of sweet peas that they've been growing. Always important to keep your labels, guys, and you know what you've sown. Some more sweet peas in there. And there's some cracking tomato plants, aren't they? Wow. Growing in some tomato bags at the bottom. Yeah, nice little addition to the garden. So, let's head back left and wrap this tour up of this walled garden and then head on to the next habitat or area. This is another lovely plant. This is yellow loosestrife, which I sometimes plant around my ponds. And in the middle there you can see the remains of an old metal roller. Maybe this was once used as a bit of a bowling green, who knows. I went straight past that. Now this, again, another contentious issue. This is what looks like hedge bindweed. Look at that on cue again. Tell you what, these insects really are behaving today. Hoverfly going in that. Trumpet to get some nectar. Bindweed, obviously a gardener's nightmare in many situations because it does just this. It goes right through and wraps itself around all your prized plants that you've spent your hard-earned cash on. But it's actually very good as a pollinator plant, and I've seen field bindweed in France being used by clouded yellow butterflies almost solely. So these plants are very, very important. There's that lovely meadow again. Look at that now in the morning light. Just glorious. And here we have a section of climbers. These are clematis of some variety. You can see just kind of going over now. But this is a really nice little habitat, which is almost like a flowering lawn. You can see we've got buttercups in there, daisies, self-heal. Really lovely to see. And then that comes back round to the gate where we came in. There you can just see the tops of the house. I'll show you the house properly later on. It really is something quite stunning. So let's head now off through the other end of this walled garden and look at that landscape behind it. Those beautiful hilly mountains. Right, let's head that way. Okay, so just to give you guys a bit of perspective, you can see behind me we've got the walled garden where we've just come from, this gorgeous iron gate and the incredible house behind, and you can see the tops of that hydrangea just poking over the top of the wall. So we're going to head down that direction, over a little bridge and down towards the first of the two wildlife ponds. So this area is a kind of sparse planting of shrubs and trees. Won't spend too much time in this area because we're going to be heading down there underneath that beautiful birch tree. And over a little wooden bridge. Absolutely blessed with the weather today. Yesterday was a rather nice day, but a couple of days before that it was absolutely lashing down, so there wouldn't have been much chance of a garden tour on those days. And just to give you an idea, as I say, the owner is very fond of his rhododendrons, but that's an actual rhododendron tree. The age of that I wouldn't like to hazard a guess at. Actually, no, I think that's a Magnolia angustifolia, judging by the colour of the underside of those leaves. Lovely. You can see the new planting of shrubs in the cages underneath. Now to go over this very quaint little footbridge which goes over a mini dike slash stream, and you can see this silver birch, absolutely stunning. You hear the soft piping notes of some of the birds within this tree, one of them being a goldcrest up there. And these enormous leaves of this butterbur, which can be a problem on riverbanks in the UK. These leaves are huge, give you an idea of size. That's my hand. So they are rather impressive. However, I'm going to show you an even bigger leaf plant. There's that little stream that goes off down there. And this is what I love to see. Sections of grass just left, as you can see, with some very inviting pathways mown through them. Magnificent stand of Scots pines up there. As I say, guys, we will be heading for a tour through some of the ancient parts of woodland that are on this estate, so stick around for those. And this is nice to see as well. This is obviously a rowan tree that's past its best, but just left us some standing deadwood, a very, very valuable habitat. And certainly one that's not too commonplace in the UK nowadays. Again, these lichens, I just can't get over the quantity of these things just draped from the trees. It's almost like they've been put there as decorations. Naturally, with the sun on that silver birch, it'd be rude for me not to show you guys that beautiful tree. Right, let's head a bit further down. Again, some more gorgeous rowan trees there, a trio of them. I'd love to see those in the autumn when they've got berries on and see just how many thrushes might be visiting. And I have just gone past this beautiful tree, which, let's have a look, have we got a name tag? I don't think so, but covered in insects at the moment. Doesn't really have much of a smell, but the bees are loving it. I'll get around this side and just pan up to it. Lovely kind of fastigiate shape, very upright. Covered in flowers at the moment. And then I want to show you guys, well, we've got a couple of cherries there. What looks to be a tulip tree with those wonderfully shaped leaves. But what I do want to show you is this hydrangea. Now, I'm not normally a massive fan of hydrangeas, but that really is quite a stunning colour, is it not? That pastel blue. Just beautiful. Seem to be quite a few insects around them, however, so I stand corrected. There goes a blackbird. And that is one hell of a sycamore tree. You can probably just make out maybe a little cherries forming on this cherry tree now. Cherries, obviously, or prunus in general, very early flowering tree. Stand of bamboo. Not sure that's quite in keeping with the Scottish landscape, but a formal garden. This little path here takes us past some of these enormous gunnery leaves. But I'm going to show you some even bigger ones than that in a little while. And some lovely seed heads developing of the Yorkshire fog in this longer grassy areas. Longer grassy areas, absolutely invaluable for butterflies. At least 7 of our native species rely on grasses as a habitat for the caterpillars to feed on, as a larval food plant. Things such as our gatekeeper, meadow brown, ringlet, our skippers. So a really, really invaluable habitat. And then we start to open up into more of this iconic Scottish landscape. I mean, look at that. That's Loch Etive. Gorgeous hills and mountains in the background. Just scrubland as far as you can see. If I could just get a house in the middle of that lot, that'd be perfect. One day. So we're going to head round now. Don't worry, I'm going to be bringing you guys better views of this loch, as I say. We've got some magnificent viewpoints I'm going to show you. And some rather hairy, long-horned guests and inhabitants of this landscape. You can see this sycamore. Just beautiful. A I believe actually that's more of a Norway maple, looking at the bark and the leaf on that. But what a structure. Native or not, that's creating a lot of habitat and cover for birds and insects, mammals, all sorts. So let's have a look now at the first of the two wildlife ponds. This is just gorgeous, this one. One thing I love about it is it's absolutely full of broadleaf pondweed. You can see in the middle, covering that water surface. Obviously very brackish waters because of the soils around here. And this beautiful birch tree that is overhanging. Looks like a downy birch, that one. We've got some greater, forgot the name, spearwort, that's it. Flowering there, the yellow. And it extends. This is obviously a natural pond, this isn't lined, this is just a very wet area. And this greater reed mace, which is yet to flower, have those typical bulrush heads on it. More hostas that are being visited by lots of hoverflies. By the end of this video, you guys are going to be sick of hoverflies, but I hope it brings a message home about the importance of them. And the bees again visiting. See the orange pollen sacs on that bee. Gorgeous. Then we've got all this yellow loosestrife, which again, a lover of damp ground. And that very, very beautiful, sadly not accessible now. I think it's in a state of repair. Bridge across the middle of this pond and another one over there. Like something out of a Monet painting, this thing. Under another birch, this looks like Betula utilis. Jack Montii, which is the white, very white barked birch. Planted a lot, not actually native, it's a variety, but nice to see. And sadly, no entry on that beautiful looking bridge. Almost like a little dew pond down here at the side of the main pond. No doubt that has plenty of life within it. With a stand of bamboo. And what about that for a rowan tree? You can see the berries already forming on that now, but what a magnificent specimen that is. There's a nice mahonia there. Mahonia very good for an early flower for bees in sort of January, February time. Let's go and have a look in the middle of this pond. Well, I don't really want to get in the middle of it, but I'd like to show you guys it. You can see that broadleaf pondweed covering the surface very well, absolutely thriving. And we've got some native water lilies as well, some white water lilies in there. You can just see one or two flowers in the middle, just about coming out. Nice reed bed here, so that, depending on what part of the world you're in, reed beds obviously are very, very good potential for bird nesting, coots, moorhens, reed warblers. In general, a lot of birds will use these in marshy, boggy areas. Back past the mahonia, you can see the old flowers of this shrub. We head round this way now. I'm actually going to take you a bit more loch side to show you some more views of this stunning loch, which is just breathtaking. Maybe you guys are beginning to see why I chose this as a honeymoon destination. Look at this beautiful section of meadow. Again, mostly Yorkshire fog, a favourite for some of our skipper species. Essex small and large skipper, although I very much doubt you're going to get the Essex skipper make it this far north anytime soon. But small skippers, which I'm sure will be in this part of Scotland, will certainly use that. Meadow browns will as well. Gatekeepers. Again, just the inclusion of mown pathways within an area like this. Oh, there's a red admiral, if you saw that. God, that's a very tatty specimen, bless it. That's done some mileage. Of course, red admirals will migrate to the UK every year. One or two are starting to overwinter, it's believed, but in general they will migrate from the continent, from Africa and the Mediterranean through to the UK and carry on north, breeding as they go over several generations, a bit like the monarchs and painted ladies. What about that for a view? I could just sit here all day, I think, but we're not going to. Got lots to show you guys yet. We're going to be heading down to a private little boathouse in a moment. I wouldn't mind a little outdoor seating area like that under cover. Obviously there's a fair bit of rainfall, I believe about 19 inches here in Scotland, this part of Scotland, so they do get a lot of water, so it would be great to have somewhere like that just to sit and relax and just watch the world go by even when it's raining. Got a lovely stand of birch there. Just beautiful. Always lovely. I really enjoy seeing trees when they are just left to grow into mature specimens without any interference from man, without any of the lower branches being removed, just left to their own devices. And one of the best examples I've ever seen of that in my entire life, I will show you guys in a little while, up near the main house, which is a Douglas fir, which is just, well, it's almost unbelievable. And on the back of this shed you can just see some clematis growing up there. I say shed, it's a bit more than that. It's got a bit of a lean on these days, but still perfectly usable. Lovely to see. And there's a bit more of an arboretum up through there. Some quite impressive eucalyptus, which I'm surprised have withstood the frosts and the colder weathers. Normally eucalyptus does fail if it goes below sort of -10, -15 degrees, but it's probably a little bit more sheltered, or those specimens are here anyway. And again, look at the lichen on these rowan trees. Absolutely gorgeous. And this hawthorn, you can see the berries developing nicely on it now after the flowers in May, May blossom as it's known. That's going to be a nice tasty snack for all the fieldfares and redwings and thrushes through the winter months. So on that post there, there's a little sign at the top that says boathouse, so that's where we're going to go next. Now this says keep gate shut for good reason, and hopefully we'll see some of the reasons why. So maybe this evidence on the floor will give you an idea as to what we're looking for. Within this area is not dinosaurs. It is in fact some very traditional Highland cows, which were here yesterday. I did get some shots of them, so if we don't bump into them today, I will put some clips in, I promise you. Yeah, you can see part of the loch extending that way. to my right there, just stunning scenery. All part, well, not that side of the loch, but this side is all part of these 5,000 acres. There's the gate we just came through. So, pan back round this way. I love, you probably associate with this, when you can see hillsides like that. I love to see the way sun and shade move across them with the clouds. It's quite rewarding, I think. I've not actually been down to this boathouse. I think it's down to our left, so I'm going to head left in a moment, but just wanted to come to the edge of this walkway. Looks like this is a little bit of a peninsula that juts out. Really lucky with the weather today. There's barely a breath of wind. And you can actually see down there, these are two of the islands within this loch that are home to many herring gulls, lesser blackback gulls, and some geese as well, oyster catchers, lots of birds using those mini islands. There is a little boat, and I'm very tempted to get it out if we get time. Not on this tour sadly, but if I can, I will. So just going to head this way now, guys, through the trees. And if there is a little bit of wind noise, hopefully there isn't, it should drop as we drop in elevation. Obviously we're very exposed up here, but what a magnificent view. A good friend, David Crossley, who was at the wedding, I'm very pleased to say, he did actually recommend that we come to Loch Ative, unbeknownst to him that we were actually staying in a house on the edge of this loch, because he has visited this part of the world before and highly recommended it for its beauty, and I can see why. It's just stunning. And just out there, just a bit further around that bend, is the little town of Connell, and about another 5 miles or so after that is the very picturesque town of Oban. If you've ever been to this part of Scotland, that's where we are. The Western Highlands, right on the coast. Really is one of my favourite parts of the world. Never been to Oban or this particular area before, but I've spent quite a bit of time in and around the Highlands, as you may have seen from some of the previous videos. And Scotland really is stunning. If you ever get a chance to visit, I strongly recommend you do so. That'd make a nice dragonfly perch, wouldn't it, in a pond? These gorgeous oak trees. You can see this is a very oft trod path by the cow print, which I'm hoping makes its way down to the boathouse we're going to go and see. That sort of piping note is about 3 oyster catchers just down there. No doubt they are breeding on these shores, if not on the island. And if you think this is a nice woodland walk, guys, wait till you see what I've got to show you coming up, because it is just magical. There's a view of those islands from here, look. Yeah, it was quite funny hearing the gulls all through the night, the first night. I kind of got used to it now. I think they must get collectively around about an hour's sleep between them. Just a riot of calls throughout most of the night. Aha, that looks to be a little tin roof. So I think we're heading in the right direction. Terrain getting somewhat muddy here, courtesy of the local inhabitants. Foxgloves always seem to amaze me as to where they will grow and where they will naturally colonise. If this is the way down, I don't fancy the way back up. But I am looking forward to seeing this little boathouse. Just so peaceful. So we were just up through that gap, up through there on top, and as you can see we've now traversed down the side of this hill down to the edge of this beautiful loch. So let's go and see what's in the boathouse. More evidence. Aha. So there is the boathouse. With the slipway as well. Well, isn't this just delightful? I particularly like this old boat with the bracken coming up through it. You can see the old metal runners going down through there to get your boat into the water. Here come the oyster catchers. How beautiful. Oyster catchers just remind me of being on the beach as a child in Norfolk when I used to go with my gran and extended family and rent a big house out there, and seeing them probing their way through the soft silty sands for food. Very beautiful bird. You couldn't get a much more vividly coloured bird really, black white with that bright orangey red bill. Right, let's have a little wander out onto this slipway. What a place. Those oyster catchers are just a bit further down the shoreline now. I've just noticed down here old shell of a crab, which looks to be, if I remember from my Collins book as a child, the shell of an edible crab. Somebody's obviously made the most of it, no doubt a herring gull or lesser blackback gull. Well, you can see them all over here actually, including these claws. And some more as well. Put them there so you guys can see them. So while the cormorants and herring gulls skim over the water, and just while I'm sat here having 5 minutes before we move on, just wanted to show you guys this little beauty, which is a plant called thrift, which I've seen in profusion along cliff tops on the Isle of Wight, and no doubt many of you will associate this plant with cliff tops and sea places or seaside places. And here you can see it's gone over now. It flowers in May, but it looks absolutely stunning, and you can see it just sort of goes off in the distance right the way down the shoreline. Really lovely to see. What an absolute corker of a spot. There's actually still one flowering there, just about. So let's head off now and see if we can find some creatures that are possibly even more hairy and ginger than I am. I think my hairy ginger friends heard me, because they've now travelled right the way over there. So I just thought I'd film a few. Aha! Caught red-handed. Gives you a bit more of an idea of what these beasts look like. So yes, just thought I'd film you guys a bit of the approach. We've got to go down this well-trodden path where my ginger friends have obviously been this morning, and up through that field over there and over to where they are currently residing, with that as a backdrop to the right, which is just stunning. Nice to see a speckled wood in this dapply shade underneath these beautiful oak trees on our way to our hairy friends. Speckled woods again, another species that rely on grass as a larval food plant. Very nice to see indeed. Well, as I was about to press record to show you guys this rather nice selection of dragonfly perches that would go very nicely around many a pond, I've just had a flyby of this red admiral, if you can just see it whizzing around. On a serious note though guys, I know I joke about these dragonfly perches, but obviously I don't advocate the idea of going out into your local wood and walking back with a load of dead wood like this. This is obviously a natural habitat for many beetles and other insects, so always best to leave it where you find it. That speckled wood is still, just close his wings up now because he's thermoregulating, but nice to see. Well, I just heard a Highland coo in my worst Scottish accent, So, oh, there they are. Chilling by the beach. Well, I did promise you some traditional Scottish Highland coos, and you don't get much more natural than that. It's just a perfect setting for these absolutely majestic creatures. And although I'm assured by the owner that these guys are in fact very nice tempered and have a really placid approach, I'm not about to approach that bull with the ring through his nose. They have got calves as well at the moment, so I don't want to get too close to disturb them, but what a perfect setting with the loch behind us and these beautiful cows in front of it with their iconic horns. Absolutely magnificent. Right, we're going to head off in that direction, and we're now going to go and look at one of the fabulous wildflower meadows along with the wonderful woodland walk. So we are now heading for that gate and that gate through there, where we will continue into the thick of this beautiful woodland setting and show you some of the meadows and some of the ancient trees. So stick around, plenty more to come yet. Well, this is a nice sight to see, guys, apart from that impressive beetle that I've just seen scampering away through the grass. All these little white tufts you can see are in fact cotton grass, which, bit of a shameless plug, are of course one of the many plants you can get on the wildyourgarden.com online shop if you're making a wildlife pond. Some hard rush there as well, another plant we sell. But really nice to see it in this natural setting, these sort of damp flushes along with all the heather that's regenerating here. That's just a wonderful habitat to see. Well, excuse the background noise, guys. We are closer to the main road and a bit more civilization, but I just wanted to show you guys a bit more of the cotton grass in its natural habitat, and no guesses as to where this plant gets its name from. You can see the seeds of which are on the end of these lovely frothy cottony seed heads. Absolutely beautiful, and they just blow around in the wind, settle, and then obviously reseed themselves and germinate to form new grasses. And just over there, I think I'm pointing in the right direction, you guys can perhaps see the beginnings of a new, watch out for horseflies around here, a new what looks to be a spruce tree, which of course are many of the Christmas trees. Yep, it's determined to get me. Yes, in the damp setting behind me. So a lovely little wet flush here, which is just full of life. So on the way to the gate, just wanted to show you guys these natural wet flushes. Just seen but not managed to capture on film. A little palmate newt. Palmate newts have almost webbed feet, and they love these kind of brackish acidic waters. And one just scuttled away into the depths of some moss before I could even get near it. But there are loads of little wet flushes and natural mini ponds throughout this landscape, which is just an ideal habitat for them. So it's just wonderful to see. Having made one or two ponds myself over the years, really nice to see these water bodies. Had a pond skater on one of the ones back in sort of that direction a moment ago as well. So no doubt these ponds are providing a wonderful habitat for many, many creatures indeed. I'm not sure what this is. Perhaps you can tell me, the botanist of you out there, but looks rather splendid. A bit like an orchid spike. You can see the heather flowering there as well. What a wonderful landscape this is. So now we enter more familiar territory. I'm back in a wildflower meadow area, which is full of the seeds at the moment of these little bents and fescues. Absolutely gorgeous. Lots of buttercups still flowering. And a couple of days ago, and even today, typically when I didn't have my camera out, we had a dark green fritillary or two. I'm hoping to bring you some of the same. Yeah, so I'm hoping to bring you one of the dark green fritillaries that we have seen over the last couple of days. I'm pretty sure the dark green fritillaries, I've not managed to get close enough to properly ID them yet. Typically now we enter the meadow, the sun's gone in. Here's a nice plant though, one that I've done a video of recently, which is of course this lovely yellow rattle, which is a little bit further behind here in Scotland. Back down in the Midlands and the south, this is already going to seed. But do check out the video I've done on yellow rattle and its importance within a wildflower meadow. This is just lovely to see. Saw a meadow brown back there. This is one of my favourite grasses, which I'm pretty sure is crested dog's tail, which has these lovely seed heads, a little bit like barley, a mini version. And here we have one or two dainty little flowers of forget-me-not, no doubt field forget-me-not. A couple more down there. Nice to see that in a meadow setting. Quite a few moths around. But this isn't the best wildflower meadow. We're going to go and see that in a minute or two. Just going to head up to that part of the field, to a gate up there, and then head back to the next section of Wildflower Meadow, which is just beautiful. Just pausing to catch breath at the top of this rather steep gradient. Just come through the gate down there, and some impressive standing deadwood in the form of Scots pines there. There's the wet flushes and the meadow. You just see the back end literally of some of the cows, and the loch over there where we just were. So we've come up to this top level meadow, had one or two meadow browns, fleeting flybys, and we're off through that gate there to then go back to the main entrance. That was a song thrush just went past, and then we can show you this rather wonderful wildflower meadow and then continue on to the woodland walk. Lovely glimpse back through there of where we were next to the loch. And through here now, this top part of this field just seems to have come alive with meadow browns. There's a good 4 or 5 in this section. Right, there's the road. Let's head down there and see what's at the other end. I have to say it's rather refreshing to see a road verge not cut or flailed. I'm sure many of you will relate to picking blackberries when you were younger, but there's some really nice raspberries, some summer fruiting raspberries that seem to have made their way into this verge, which is quite nice. Bumblebee down there enjoying some of the bramble flowers. Brambles already now, you can see, developing into blackberries. But what flowers are left are still being used by a variety of bees. We've got some rosebay willow herb, which is a larval food plant of the elephant hawk moth. Got some lovely lesser knapweed here, which is going to be flowering very soon, which we're going to go and have a look at in the meadow in a moment. But again, you can see adjacent to this wildflower meadow, these verges are all left. Even the hogweed it's just one little flower, but you can see insects on it. We've got some yarrow down here as well. Yarrow, very good for a late flower. We've got some meadow sweet, which does get its name from being very sweetly scented. And we've even got some red clover that's now gone over down here. But just a lovely section of road verge that is left to its own devices. Hoping you guys can hear that. But just working their way through these sycamores at the moment is a family of long-tailed tits. Rather nice to see. Sounds like a bit of a squabble going on back there. Have some jays by the sound of it. More of these rhododendrons, which have had a bit of a flush after flowering. Nice to see as well the honeysuckle, colonising honeysuckle, a larval food plant of the white admiral in the UK. And one of my favourite grasses in this verge are these cocksfoot, which, because of their very rigid structure, provide a nice roosting ground for brown argus and common blue butterflies. In the evening you can quite often see them on the side of a stem closed up. So here you can see this native honeysuckle just about to flower. Really lovely. This is the native honeysuckle that we do sell on the Wildflower Garden online shop for any of you that are looking for a lovely climate to create some cover, some greenery, some nesting potential, and indeed some very good rich sources of nectar for bees and a variety of moths as well. A lot of moths love to nectar on honeysuckle, so a very good plant for your wildlife garden. This isn't going to be a whole video on a country lane, guys, I promise, but can't help myself. Look at this bramble. That is a common carder bee, loving the nectar available. We've got another one here. Brambles, I cannot highlight the importance enough. I'm not talking Chelsea flower show, but they are really brilliant. Down here we've got some tufted vetch, which is a really good plant for bees. Beautiful purple spires. And here we've got another species of bee. We've got a tree bumblebee because of its white bum, but ginger back, you can see there. So bramble, a really, really good source of nectar for so many plants, and I recommend some for a garden setting. I don't mean let your whole garden turn to brambles, which has been a bit in the media recently, which is a bit frustrating, and people having a go at whether you should have bramble or not. But I think if you are going to have a wildlife garden, a mix of habitats is the best. And as you can see, just on this small patch of brambles, we've even now got what looks to be a honeybee using it. So that's 3 species of bees within a minute using this valuable resource. Another common carder down there. And of course the berries later on are wonderful. And then up here, I couldn't help but want to show you guys one of these glorious honeysuckle flowers in flower. Is that not just magical? So within a matter of meters where we've come from the meadow grasses and the open light areas of the road there to this section of road, the palette of flowers has completely changed. And here we've still got in flower, they've long gone over down in Essex, but we've got some red campion, or pink campion as many people know it, also available in the Wildflower Garden online shop. A brilliant plant for insects and a great one for shade, as you can see. If I can get the camera to focus, there you go. These beautiful ferns, absolutely gorgeous. We have some yellow archangel in there, and we've also got some hedge bedstraw, which is a larval food plant of, well, actually that's cleavers, sorry, it's that similar. But that is also a larval food plant of the hummingbird hawk moth, of which I did see around the front of the house a couple of days ago. So very nice to see a different mix of plants. Buttercups as well will do well in shade. So very nice to see a different mix of plants. And nettles. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like nettles, but they are, of course, where our red admirals come from, our small tortoiseshells. It looks to be like a little bit of feeding damage on the end of this one, so could have possibly been host to a red admiral caterpillar. So small tortoiseshell, red admiral, peacock and comma, 4 species of alvanesids use the nettle as a larval food plant. So now we head left at the fork and back in to the main garden. I just absolutely love this maidenhair spleenwort, which is growing all out of this stone pillar at the entranceway to, or the entrance to the gateway of this property. And you can see some ivy-leaved toadflax as well. Does very well in these stony, rocky conditions. Fabulous to see that. So this is the entranceway to the house, and as you can see, you are greeted by these magnificent copper beech trees, of which there are 3. And aren't they just wonderful? We've got a really lovely holly there which stretches skyward, and to the right here we've got a Wellingtonia, a sequoia redwood, which stretches into the stratosphere. And then round to the left we have a rather impressive stand of western red cedars, or thuyas, and that's where we will be heading next, after we have been down here and had a look at the wildflower meadow. The tree roots, as you can see, have lifted the tarmac somewhat from this Wellingtonia, so you've got to go a bit steady when you're driving here, but these beech trees are just magnificent. Tell a lie, I thought it was 3 beech trees. It's actually 1 beech and 2 horse chestnuts. Equally remarkable trees. Sounds like the gardener's doing a bit of trimming today. And to the right, where we're going to head now, is the mown area for the car park. This is part of a garden scheme, and it is open to the public 1 day a week. So we're very fortunate to have the place to ourselves for the whole week. And then we leave on Saturday morning, where we will then let anybody who wants to visit this gorgeous house and gardens come and enjoy it. We're obviously expecting a lot of guests. It's quite a mown area. But this is the meadow that I wanted to show you guys. It's just appearing on the horizon now, which was teeming with insects yesterday. I had a small copper, a very fine specimen that was, nectaring on the buttercups, who's being very obliging with the camera. Plenty of meadow browns, had a white go through, I think a small white. And these very elusive dark green fritillaries, which Nikki actually saw 4 of before I could even get to it. And then they seem to disappear, but they're very strong flyers, dark green fritillaries, and they do cover rather large areas. But isn't this a beautiful feature? That mown path, so exciting. Well, it is exciting for me, but inviting, I should say. A little bit overcast at the moment, so the butterflies might be honkering down a bit. But let's take a wander down this path. It'd be rude not to, wouldn't it? And see what we can see. So there's lots of buttercups, which are still flowering. They're going over now, but they are still flowering. These dead seed heads are beautiful. They really are. They are the seed heads of, oh, and a dragonfly. Looks like a common darter over the path. Intrigued as to what we are, I think. Might have never seen a human, that. But yes, these little seed heads are in fact the seed heads of a lovely little plant called pignut, which are these gorgeous sort of crimson seeds. You can see this meadow has a really nice mix of flowers and grasses, how every wildflower meadow should be. Let's go see if we can find that common darter or flush it off the path potentially. I think it figured we were coming this way and has scarpered, but there's quite a few dragonflies that are using this meadow to hunt, along with a myriad of other creatures as well. No doubt bats will be hunting over this at night to catch the moths. If I just turn to my left now, you can see some of the clumps. Fritillary. There we go, dark green fritillary on the, look at that, on the red clover. Hats off to this wildlife today, it's being very, very obliging. And off across the meadow it goes. Well, that dark green fritillary has done exactly what I just said and vanished into thin air. It's flown off, no doubt, through the woodland into one of the many other meadows. But lovely to see it nectaring on the red clover, just highlighting the importance of red clover and white clover as well, of which there is some over there. But I was just about to come on to these standalone clumps. Now, I wish we were here in a week or so's time when these things burst into flower. You can see them all over there. They are, of course, lesser knapweed or black knapweed or common knapweed, which are absolutely second to none in terms of high summer nectar for insects, particularly butterflies. And you can see, where are we? This, for example, here, it's so wanting to flower. It's almost there. But you can imagine, I mean, there are dozens and dozens. There's probably 150, if not 200 flower heads on that one plant. So that's going to be an absolute wealth of nectar for insects in the coming weeks, days by the looks of it. And obviously you can get these again on the online shop, guys. Brilliant for a meadow. The bee buzzing around there. Here we have the flowers of, I want to show you this because it is quite relevant, the common sorrel, which is the larval food plant of the small copper that I saw yesterday. And here I'm just going to pick one just to show you guys. Here is one of the leaves, distinguishable by the kind of notch at the base of the leaf, and that is what the caterpillars will be munching away on. Loads and loads of leaves through here, you can see it all sticking up. So yes, no doubt a good number of small copper butterflies will be frequenting this meadow. Looks to be some hawksbeard over there. the yellow flowers coming up. More knapweed, lesser knapweed here. And then we go into, I was really expecting when I started this journey a couple of days ago to be able to go on into the woodland. So I was quite disappointed in a way to have to then turn around and go back through this wildflower meadow. What a shame, hey? There's worse things in life. But looking from here, I mean, you can see, oh look, there looks to be a young red deer. I think it was a red deer. Had no problem getting over that 4-foot fence. But yes, the importance of mown paths through a meadow, just make it look kempt. They enable you to walk through without disturbing any wildlife, and they are a great way for you to appreciate this invaluable habitat without disturbing the wildlife, as I say. Now back up here there is a plant that I want to show you again, which is colonising nicely within this meadow amongst all these gorgeous buttercups and a whole host of other plants. Apparently there's quite a few bluebells in here. I was talking to the gardener the other day. We are of course past the bluebell season, but just down there, if you can make them out, are several common spotted orchids, again which we'll have better views of in a short while, but they are a very nice addition to a wildflower meadow. Yeah, and we're kind of in between seasons here, but because we're a bit further north, the skippers aren't out yet, the gatekeepers aren't out yet, and we're kind of in between the spring and the summer butterflies. Summer butterflies are obviously just starting to emerge with the viewing of that rather gorgeous dark green fritillary, but they are of course a lot more to come yet. So we're going to carry on and perhaps take a wander just on the way out along that kind of mown edge, just to see if there's anything in that longer grassy area, and then head off through there and into the woodland to give you guys a view of some of the incredible trees and some of the viewpoints that are found within this woodland belt. Well, these gardens are so big, we've had to split this tour over 2 days. So here we are now at the entrance to the Woodland Walk, which is a gorgeous walk, and I can't wait to show you some of the beauties that are found inside. So we're going to be looking at some of the trees. We've got a wildlife pond number 2 in here as well, and we've got some incredible vistas, and then we have a couple of incredible trees that I'd like to end this section of the tour on before we move on to the final section, which is the around the front of the house where we have the formal gardens, and hopefully we might be able to pick out a few butterflies as well. So stay tuned guys, and let's go and have a walk now through this woodland. Okay guys, follow me and let's go into this wooded area. Straight away we've got one of the many impressive larch trees that are found within this estate, which are the native European larch. Beautiful trees they are, and what looks like a lovely escallonia next to it actually, which has now gone to berry, although actually the leaves look a bit more like a berberis. Not the native berberis, but a very nice shrub, no doubt. I'm sure there's a tasty berry on there for a few birds. And this is where it starts to get really interesting. You can see we have again more of these lovely rhododendrons that have finished flowering now. And this next bit, which is a real favourite of mine, is like this little fern walk, which is not intentional. This is just naturalised ferns, which are just beautiful coming out of the ground. And in a moment, I think, if I remember correctly, I'll be able to show you guys ferns alongside some bracken to let you know what the difference is. These ferns look stretching all the way down there. I think I'll call this bit Fern Gully. Gorgeous part of this estate. Had a couple of speckled woods through here the other day, just a little further up, so might bump into one of those. Then we have this small stand of rather large western red cedars, which are, the Latin of which is Thuja, Thuja. And again to the right then we have some impressive larch trees towering away. Larch, very good for attracting siskins, red poles, coal tits, goldcrest. They do love a good larch. Of that, peep peep peep, that was a goldcrest in there. Yeah, and this lovely grove of Thujas, it's like walking through Jurassic Park or something. Very lovely straight stems, western red cedar, used a lot as a production timber, probably hence why it's grown here. Oh, and here's the full Latin, it's Thuja plicata. There we go. Yeah, western red cedar, very good construction timber, has a lot of durability. Hopefully these trees might be left. Of course, it's always the challenge when managing an estate of this size. You've got to make it financially viable, so timber production has and will always be part of the management of these estates. Another fabulous larch tree there. That one is a good 3 foot across at the bottom, and again another bank of these ferns, and if you look back, just absolutely stunning. And here on the base of this oak tree, it's absolutely covered in moss. Look at that. Again, another sign of the air quality. And if you look up the tree, you can see all these ferns growing out the side of it, all the way up. Wonderful to see. And a nice big sycamore there. Sycamores, when they get bigger, well, you can see more ferns growing in on the branches up there. Sycamores, when they get bigger, have really lovely flaky bark, which you can see creates these crevices, and it's behind these crevices that quite often you can find a tree creeper nesting, European tree creeper, which I have found a nest. Oh, there's a speckled wood just alighting the path in front of me. We might bump into that in a minute. So yes, the tree creeper, although sycamores aren't necessarily native to the UK, they have been in the UK for several hundred years now, and they are part of the landscape whether we like it or not, and they do provide a lot of cover, a lot of nesting potential. And just look at that canopy, gorgeous. What's not to love about a woodland walk? It's nice holly here, actually, really nice. There's not many hollies on this estate that I've seen so far. This one is a good 30 foot. Nice tree. Probably a male because it doesn't have any berries on it by the looks of it, hence it hasn't flowered. Here we have the bracken, which on top of, you can see a beautiful red admiral. They seem to be really coming out in numbers now here on this estate, and I've seen quite a few over the last few days. This one being very obliging. Look at that. Very camouflaged when they close. Of course, when they open their wings, they've got this gorgeous reddy orange on the upper side and black and white. Notice how, or note how it's got its wings closed at the moment, so it's thermoregulating. Doesn't want to get too hot. So here I wanted to show you guys some bracken while I've got a good example to show you. Now, bracken is a different plant to ferns, and it gets a lot taller. B, you can see the main difference is it has this single stem coming from the base with the leaves coming off the side of the stem. So that is the key point about bracken. I don't really want to leave this red admiral if I'm honest, but we've got lots to show you guys yet. So another nice butterfly to add to the tour. So we can see here we've got bracken that's still smaller. And then if we go back to the ferns, these are ferns, and these in essence are a leaf that comes straight from the ground. So these leaves will die back in the autumn. Some of them, not all of them, but a lot of them will die back in the autumn, and then they'll kind of have this gorgeous kind of unfurling motion as they emerge as new leaves in the spring. So ferns grow from the base, and the bracken goes a stem with the leaves coming off it. Just a bit of useless information for you there. Another magnificent oak tree. This one a good 4.5 feet across the bottom. Oh, and a speckled bud. Butterfly number 2. There we are. You see where it gets its name from? That lovely mottling on the upper side of the wings makes it very, very camouflaged in these dappley shady settings, which is of course one of its preferred habitats. And that will be using a number of grasses. Could be grasses like this to lay its eggs on. They are a lover of dappled shade, and you can see on the ground it is the perfect habitat for them. So they're very, very hard to spot when they land. If you don't see them land, or where they land exactly, it can be very difficult to spot. So a nice one for this part of the tour. And then if we look to my right, sadly a casualty, but what an incredible tree. That looks to be an old beech, but it's creating its own habitat because it actually has a cotoneaster growing out the end of it, along with some ferns as well. And there's even some bramble that started to root itself in the top. No doubt that was a favoured perch of a blackbird or something who's passed the bramble seeds through its gut, left a little deposit there, and that's how a bramble has rooted itself in the top of this tree root. An impressive root plate, and more ferns you can see growing out the top. So ferns, that's a good example there, going straight from the base. Bracken has this main stem. And of course ferns and brackens, very, very old, some of the oldest plants, because they don't have any flowers. So, which suggests and indicates that they were around pre-insects, because they don't need insects to pollinate them. They just spread by spores, same as fungi. So bit of an interesting fact there for you. Then we've got a few nice beech trees on the left here again. The rumbling of a train. We're not far from the railway line that goes right the way out to, I don't know if you can see through there. No, but the train is literally just over there. Thank you very much. And that's another one of the meadows you can see through there, which we did come through a few moments ago on the tour, if you remember. I walked up the hill that way, back to the main road and back into the main gardens through there to go to the meadow. That bird you can hear possibly above me, do it, and a P2. Here's a coal tit, which is nice that they've turned up on cue. And I can't help but want to show you guys these old stumps. Look, love the way they are just covered in moss. And then these ferns are taking advantage of that lovely growing medium underneath. Above me, it's just alive with birds. If you can hear this single piping notes, they're quite high pitched. And most of those will be gold crests. And again, these magnificent larch trees, I mean, just incredible. Well, I couldn't help but want to get Nikki to hold the camera to show you guys this. This is another example of the standard size of some of the larch trees in this area. It's absolutely enormous. By no means the biggest larch in the world, but a pretty nice specimen. And when I look up, I can see this beautiful entanglement of all those branches, again covered in mosses and lichens, just providing loads of little nooks and crannies for these goldcrest tree creepers, nuthatches and many associated birds to hunt through for spiders and insects. Just gives you an idea of the enormity of this tree. Just absolutely breathtaking. And it's one of many, like I say, on the estate. Again, larch, very much grown as a production timber, so used a lot in construction. Larch cladding, for example, is used on a lot of houses. Weathers very well outside. And it was actually larch that I used to create the bird hide, if you haven't seen, that I created in Aberdeen in Scotland last year, which was a really nice little project next to a wildlife pond that I created. So go back and check that one out on the channel. So larch to one side. I've just spotted some fabulous mosses on top of another stump that I'm going to show you guys now. So you can see again this tree stump covered in mosses, ferns growing from the base, and then when we get to the top, look at that. It's like a little mini jungle. And these beautiful mosses capping the top off on this old stump. If I stand back now, you get an idea of the size of it. Just a lovely little habitat, and it's places like that underneath and in and around these old stumps that things like the wrens will nest, potentially chiff-chaff, willow warbler, blackcap as well. So another great habitat, and of course home to potentially lesser stag beetles. They'll use the old rotting timber underground, and that will be where the larvae will be living for a year or two before they emerge as the adult lesser stag beetle. We're too far north for stag beetles, but certainly you can expect to find lesser stag beetles here. I feel bad even walking on this path, it's just got moss all over it. Lovely path. So we carry on now past some more woodland favourites. This of course is hazel, which many of you will have heard me talk about before. Hazel, possibly my favourite native shrub, has an entire wealth of insects associated with it. Obviously provide the nuts for squirrels and mammals, mice as well, wood mice, harvest mice. Lots of many different creatures will use it, and of course the denser stems, when it is bigger like that, can be home to things like coal tits. Coal tits use hazel for nesting in when they hollow out at the bottom. So yeah, birds will often nest in the dense base of them. Another mighty larch tree there, look at the roots on that. The buttresses, these bits that come out the side as well, showing that's where the strength is in anchoring this tree, which has a reasonable lean away from the camera. And another one next to it just here with these gorgeous, well, pale blue grey lichens as well. Beautiful colour. Underneath a beech tree, a young one this time. Beech masts are favoured food for hawfinches. Not that I've seen many of them in my life, but rather nice bird if you've ever had the fortune of seeing one. And then we kind of open out a little bit, so we've gone from what was not really dense but reasonably dense woodland. Beech casts a lot of shade, and the beech trees that are down there will create a fair bit of shade. You can see not a lot of light on the woodland floor, and then past this clump of bracken, which does have ticks associated with it. So I would always say, guys, if you're out walking, try not to march your way through bracken, because if a tick gets on you and bites you, there is the chance of getting Lyme's disease, which a good friend of mine did contract many years ago, and it has left, well, it changed his life actually. He was in conservation a lot, and it meant that he was therefore very much out of breath when doing anything physical from there on in. So yes, quick pause for that very vocal wren. So yeah, do be careful guys when you're out walking amongst bracken. You're okay walking alongside it mostly, it's just when you brush the stems, that's when they will jump on the host, which will usually be deer, foxes, badgers, rabbits, anything they can get on really. So yes, as I was saying, ticks to one side, we're kind of opening out a little bit now, so we've got these lovely old birch trees above me, a very old magnificent rowan tree there as well, and we're starting to get a bit more light on the woodland floor, which is quite nice. These semi-shady areas are a real treat to see. Another magnificent rowan tree there. And again, because we're in a slightly harsher climate, the tree growth will quite often in exposed situations be slower and slightly more stunted. So a tree that might normally look 80, 100 years old in a lowland forest could be 150, 200 years old at elevation, and certainly further north. So quite remarkable. You can see those lovely branches there of a larch tree hanging down. Larch is our only native deciduous coniferous tree. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Native deciduous coniferous tree, and it has in the UK, and it does drop its needles, and in the springtime it's the most vivid, beautiful, oh, dragonfly, sorry. It's the most vivid, beautiful colour. There's a dragonfly hawking over the middle of the path. What looks to be, okay, we'll have a look at the camera then. Hard to tell, possibly migrant hawker. There were at least two of them around here. Yes, the larch needles are the most vivid green, a bit like beech leaves in the spring, so do look out for them. Well, that dragonfly just caught an insect on the wing, trying to get a proper look at it. Of course, being in Scotland, there are a few species. Scotland's very good for dragonflies. That actually looks to be probably a male southern hawker. Yeah, he's quite blue on the back but a green head, so I'm going to go with male southern hawker on that. That's my first of the year, so nice to see. These things are acrobatic wonders. There's a reason that they've not evolved much in the last couple of 100 million years, because they are an apex predator, and they can fly up to 15 meters a second, some of them. It's gone right up into the trees now. I'm just going to go this way a little bit, being careful of the bracken. I just want to show you guys this lovely little vista from, and don't worry, we've got another vista in a moment. So this is kind of the edge of the hillside, looking through these gorgeous beech trees down to the meadow and down to the edge of the loch, and just through there. You won't be able to make it out from here, but I can just see one of the Highland cows that we were looking at yesterday. So very nice to see. So this is kind of heading back down, as I say, towards the meadow and the loch where we were yesterday. And we've got bracken here, but that entire bank there is just ferns. I mean, just wow. A lot of ferns, obviously a very good plant for dry, shady, and even wet, shady conditions. So we're going to move further around here now, and there's a very interesting plant that I'm going to show you guys next, which is part of this sort of wet flush. And over there we've got a load of hedge woundwort, which is another plant that I planted in my front garden, in my front wildlife garden, which is very, very good for bees, and I can even make out a common carnaby on it, which I'm not expecting you guys to from that distance. So yeah, very, very good plant. Now along here, oh, speckled wood, sorry. No doubt most of you guys are used to my little interludes and interruptions from butterflies. It's all part of the tour. Feel free to leave at any time, but do come back. A lot of clattering around in there. I wonder whether that's a deer. up in one of the rhododendrons. Anyway, the plant that I want to show you guys is this rather interesting plant that was no doubt planted as part of the wildlife pond at the top of this slope, which we'll get to in a moment. But down here, in fact, you know what, I'm going to ask my good lady to hold the camera and crouch next to it so you guys can see it. So this rather leafy plant, as you can see, is American skunk cabbage, which is, as the name suggests, not a native, and it's clearly doing very well because it has spread itself down this kind of wet flush, which is the overflow from the main pond at the top. And at the moment it has these fabulous flower spikes, which if I can get in here and show you, a bit like a bottle brush. They are just very interesting. They're not actually that spiky, but they've got flowers all over them at the moment. And what an interesting plant this is. The leaves remind me of a begonia, if you're used to the garden plant that is begonias. Huge leaf that is. Must be 2'6" long. Just the leaf part, without the stalk. With the stalk, well, you can see that's over 3 foot. So quite an interesting leaf. However, we're now going to go up to the top of this slope and have a look at an even bigger leaf. Another rhododendron to the left that's gone over there, but no doubt that was a riot of colour up until recently. Here you can see that skunk cabbage really doing rather well. I can imagine this will be a bit of a problem for a fair bit of the native flora, because I can't imagine many plants will get a chance to go through that lot. Creates this almost flat mat of vegetation. And just over there is the next rather large leafy plant that we're going to have a look at. So this rather large rhubarb looking plant is actually a type of gunnera. Now, I'm not a gunnera expert, but these plants do very well next to a pond. So if you're looking to plant your pond up with native wildflowers, you won't find this on the wildyourgarden.com online shop because look at the size of that. This leaf is over 4 feet in diameter, and that's just one of the leaves. And underneath it has these really quite spiky stems. Ow, yeah, they are. But actually, when you get down and you look through, it creates this lovely kind of understory. But as I say, creates also a bit of a monoculture. So along with the skunk cabbage, there's not a lot of other plants in this area. So if you ever think about planting a gunnera next to your pond, make sure you've got a lake before you do so. This thing is incredible. Very rough leaf as well. You can hear it. It's like sandpaper. But an amazing plant all the same, or nonetheless. And in the middle, I don't know if you can see, it has started to send up a flower spike, which is almost equally as impressive. Just in the middle there. Looks like an entire Christmas tree. And then while I'm here, we actually have a bit of a second catchment pond. These wildlife ponds form part of a series of ponds and wet flushes that go down this hillside. The top pond, which we'll go and have a look at in a moment, but then you've got kind of this secondary catchment pond which doesn't have a lot in it. Could do with a bit of a clear out, to be honest. It's mostly covered in duckweed, but I can also see some broadleaf pondweed in the middle, which is a nice plant which we saw on the last wildlife pond. But other than that, it's becoming pretty overrun, and obviously when ponds get to this kind of level of overgrown vegetation, it's best to kind of interject, if you like, to have a bit of a clear out, because particularly the dragonflies, like we've just seen, will want some open water in order to lay their eggs in, along with the damselflies as well. If a pond is completely shaded out, it's not going to do too well, so you want to have a little bit of light going in there at least. So that's one of the secondary parts of this pond. Now let's go and have a look at the top level pond. So there is the monstrous gunnera. If I pan round to the right, they've got this nice little open area here, which is which has this kind of centerpiece of a sundial, which is very nice, lovely old bit of stone. Nice little feature. It's always nice, I think, when you can stumble across little features like this within a garden. Obviously most of us don't have several acres to play with, but when you can create little rooms, I think it's very nice. Got a what looks to be a snake bark cherry that's been planted there. This tree was planted in memory of Jane Nelson by the gardeners in 2011. So Jane, obviously the Nelson family, are the current owners of this beautiful estate. And behind we've got, it doesn't look like it from here, but that is one mighty Scots pine tree. And then moving round to the right, we've got more silver birch, again covered and almost draped in these lichens. Absolutely fabulous. The hosta doing very well down there, and that's the mown path that would take us down to where we were a moment ago looking at the dragonfly. So I also want to show you this next plant, which is not a native, but there are quite a few here and they are beautiful nonetheless, and that are these gorgeous hydrangeas, which this one is a magnificent sort of purple blue colour, like violet. It's gorgeous. Some of them are more purple, some of them are like that kind of a blue. And if you remember the almost sky blue, sort of baby blue colour that we saw a little while ago on the tour when we exited the formal gardens, there's quite a nice variety. And then this is actually an Irish yew, and you can see it's very fastigiate in its growth, meaning it's growing skyward. Unlike a normal yew, which would branch out more, these are often lined down driveways of formal estates. Irish yew, a very nice tree. Right, on to, oh, and there, oh my god, trying to keep up with that. There was a female southern hawker, because that one was bright green. So male and female, nice to see. No doubt because of the abundance of insects and the presence of these water bodies. So here we have, I say the top level pond. I'm going to head up that way in a second just to double check. I don't think there's a pond at the top, but I want to make absolutely sure. I've got this nice bridge walkway, and then it migrates down again, this wet flush coming through. We've got some what looks like angelica about to burst there. Wild angelica, a nice plant that I plant around the margins of my wildlife pond. If I tread gingerly into here, you can see that was a tree bumblebee that's just left the top of this common spotted orchid. And I have another one there which is slightly white. Common spotted orchids have a lot of variation within them, and that one is a really nice pale colour. So through here we've got a lot of hard rushes going down into the main pond, which I'm not going to lie, does desperately need clearing out. You can see the grass has encroached quite dramatically into the middle of this pond, although it looks to be full of lesser spearwort and lots and lots of flag iris. So for those of you that get in touch and say, should I put yellow flag iris next to my pond? Depends how big your pond is. And kind of halfway across it changes into this variegated variety of flag iris. So this, you can see, has formed a massive clump that's probably 4 meters by 3 meters. So be warned, if you want to have yellow flag iris in your pond, it does create a big clump. You can see those impressive gunnera leaves down there. They do look fabulous in this kind of an environment, in this landscape. But as I say, they create a bit of a monoculture and are a bit of a brute for a small garden. Then down here we have one of the candelabras. Remember I showed you guys these back in the formal garden, so you can see those primrose shaped leaves, part of the primula family. And these ones have actually gone over now, they've finished flowering, so probably a slightly different variety to the ones in the gardens, but you just see the two little yellow flowers on top. But yes, these candelabras, not native again as I say, but a very nice plant, and obviously like it very wet. And we've got more common spotted orchids down through here actually. In amongst a few leaves of meadow sweet. Meadow sweet does very well in this part of Scotland. There have been absolute swathes of it along some of the verges, around some of the edges of the lochs. It does do very well in damp ground. And we'll go over there in a moment, have a look what's in flower in profusion. As I turn round, we have seen on the estate a hummingbird hawk moth or two over the last few days, and this cleavers, or sticky weed as some people call it, is actually, well, it does have a little white flower if you can see, and lots of pollen on my hands, which is nice. But you can see it has a little white flower, and it is still a larval food plant of the hummingbird hawk moth. So before you rip it all out in your garden, leave some of it, because they do lay their eggs on this plant along with the hedge bedstraw. So hedge bedstraw I think is a preferred plant, but the cleavers, or the sticky weed like I say, obviously well known for when it goes to seed, having these little tiny seed balls that stick everywhere. Get on your clothing. You always know if you've been through some of this when you get back from a walk, or usually it's hanging off your dog's ears or coat. So, but yes, we shouldn't get rid of it completely, because as I say, it does create a larval food plant. A little bed here of what looks to be a stilby, a slightly different variety. It gets rather confusing when you're looking at plants that are derivatives of the native, because of course the leaves start to change a little bit, the flowers start to change a little bit, and that's very similar to a stilby, which it is. But also the meadow sweet, before they flower, the meadow sweet looks just like this, but is a more confined, sort of tightly packed head. Right, let's take a quick wander past this bridge. All right, I'll go on the bridge first. So I can show you guys the middle. We've got another species of gunnera down there, a slightly smaller leafed one. And this is the astilbe I was just talking about. What about that for a vivid pink colour? Currently a fly on it, sorry Mr. Fly. But that is quite something, isn't it? Very delicate flower, but beautiful, absolute bright pink, that thing. And you can see up through the middle, there are these lilies and hostas and flag iris, which make this lovely bouquet of vegetation, where it is obviously quite damp. So quite a nice little spot. So if we turn round now and go back this way, I'm just going to go up the edge of this wet stream. There's the pond from the top of the bridge, or what was a pond. And in a moment we're going to go off through there and through the woodland to a rather nice viewpoint of the loch right next to where we're staying. So stick around, guys. Obviously we've still got the formal gardens to do, so hats off to those of you that are still tuning in, still watching at this point. Hopefully you've been enjoying this tour, and let me know your comments. Obviously if this is the sort of thing you guys would like to see more of, then let me know. I know we're all pretty nosy these days, so we like a good nosy around someone else's garden, but let me know your thoughts if you are enjoying the video, if you've enjoyed the tour. And obviously don't forget to subscribe to the channel, guys, and hit that notification bell, then you won't miss a single video I post. So yes, and thank you obviously for all the support, as always. So we're getting up to the top now. This is a bed, again another bed of flag iris, yellow flag iris. You can see it's finished flowering now, and it's created these seed pods. So that's finished, that's gone over. But you can see the impression they were trying to make here. which is a series of wet flushes, which is just beautiful. And actually you can see all the yellow stems there of the candelabra primulas. And that tree there, which I'm hoping there's a tag on, is a rather interesting specimen, very old tree. We'll go and have a look at that in a moment. Again, this kind of wet flush, and here, nearly went past it. What about that for a hydrangea? I've not seen many that are cream with pale blue edges before. Isn't that just beautiful? Hydrangea's not incredible for insects, but my goodness, they look stunning at this time of year. There are one or two things that we use them, one or two smaller flies and insects that we use them for as a various food source, but in general they're not amazing. Down here we have a nice little plant. This is a little plant called tormentil, which seems to grow everywhere. It's one that we get growing in a lot of our lawns, but quite often we never get to see it like this because it's mown time after time after time. So tormentil, very nice plant if you get to have some in your garden. Let it grow. I don't want to quote Frozen in any way, I'll get sued by them, but let it grow. Here we've got some lovely hostas, which are this gorgeous kind of lilac-y colour and have a lovely entrance to them. You can see there, that's where the bees will crawl in and get the nectar at the base, but in doing so we'll go over all those stamen and gather pollen. And we've got some, that's a nuthatch by the way, doing that toot, 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 toot. Soldier beetles on this one, enjoying that. And here we have the Alchemilla mollis, which I showed you guys earlier, but again, great example. We had a bit of a rain shower yesterday, and look how it's holding the water on these leaves. These beautiful droplets. Absolutely stunning. So yes. And over there, I'm going to go and show you that in a second. Here we have a magnificent fern. I'm not sure what this is, but this thing is over 5 foot tall. These leaves are just wow. Look at the size of that. Brilliant. And just to give you guys a bit of an idea of where we are, the house is now over there. The formal gardens were over that way, and we will be heading to the house to give you guys a view of the house because it is quite something. Here we've got another Betula utilis, Jack Montii, which is the white barked birch, as you can see. But look again at the lichens that are on it. It looks like somebody's just sprayed silly string all over it. Gorgeous. A lot bigger leaf than the native birch as well. It's more like a cherry leaf. So if you're wondering what a native birch leaf looks like compared to this, it's quite a bit smaller. So yes, we've reached kind of the top of this wet flush now, which starts kind of where this fern is. So we're going to head back down and through the woodland past these lovely hostas. And this I just love. This is a true native foxglove. Now I know we spoke about foxgloves before, but this you can see is, oh, and a common carder bee exiting from one of the tubes, one of the flowers. I don't think I've ever done a garden tour where the wildlife has been so obliging and acted on cue. It's brilliant. So yes, this is a true native foxglove because you can see it is this very uniform deep purple colour, which is just beautiful. And I've seen a lot of these on my travels over the last week. Sadly, they're a bit hard to get in this colour because many of the garden derivatives are kind of a pinky white variety, which quite often, don't get me wrong, don't look any less attractive, but I do love this pure purple native form. Find it a lot in Scotland and in the Lake District, so it's lovely to see. And you can see some smaller ones here where they're being stunted a little bit by this fern that are still have a few flowers left. That one's completely gone to seed. Great way to get foxglove seeds is by knocking the old seed heads into an ice cream tub at the end of the season. You can get thousands doing that. Right, I think I need to go up and round this block of vegetation, which I'm not quite sure what the shrub is actually. I know what this one is. This is a... No, I don't. I thought it was a pyracantha. I think it's a smaller rhododendron, smaller leafed rhododendron. But again, look at that. It's just the... looks like a load of cobwebs in there. It's riddled with lichens. Anyway, moving on. This tree really is magnificent. It's not enormous in terms of its height, but it's almost like a maple. Just go and see if there's a tag on it. Aha! Oh, it's a liquid amber. Of course it is. Liquid amber styrosiflua. So yes, if you're interested. Beautiful tree. Absolutely beautiful tree. Ferns growing out of it part way up as well. Right, let's head back down to the main pond, past more magnificent magnolias, rhododendrons. This one is like a tree. I mean, there's not many rhododendrons I've seen that are that size. Those trunks are a good 12-14 inches across at least at the base, so very impressive. And down here, so we're now back to this side of the bridge. Just want to show you guys the hostas which are on this side, which are looking fabulous at the moment, really splendid. And a couple of days ago had 2 or 3 bees on. It's just got a little bit overcast now and a bit cooler, but there's still quite a lot of insects. And in amongst it is a little kind of nondescript plant, or very discreet plant anyway, which is this willow herb, a small willow herb. Willow herbs, quite often we see them as weeds, but they are a vital source of nectar for a lot of insects, and quite delicate, quite a pretty little plant really. I know if it was rare we'd soon appreciate it, but alas it is not, and it grows in profusion around pond edges, and it is used by several species of moth as well as a larval food plant. Right, now I'm going to head in there and show you guys something rather spectacular. So this little beauty of a butterfly, it just landed on that leaf, if you can see. I don't want to spook it, is a ringlet. If you can tell by the golden rings on the back of, or the base of the hind wing on the underside. It's gorgeous chocolate dainty little butterfly. This is actually the first one I've ID'd and properly seen this year. I've not seen too many of them. Of course they do better in damper climates, where we are here in Scotland. They are lovers of shade, sun as well, but what a nice little addition. Go on, come this way, you know you want to. So I just wanted to show you guys another one of the very impressive trees that are found on this estate, and this beauty of a tree is a Douglas fir, again used a lot in production timber, but here you can see it has been left alone. I don't think they'll be felling this one anytime soon, because quite how they get it out of this spot without a crane, I'm not quite sure. It is magnificent, and just to give you an idea of the scale of it, I'll stand in front of it width-wise, and it's not far off the reach of my arms, I would say, so it's got to be a good 5 or so feet across. However, in a moment's time, stick around, because we are going to go and see a Douglas fir that knocks this one out of the ballpark. It is at least 5 times the girth of this, so, and it is the biggest Douglas fir I've ever seen in my life, and probably am likely to ever see, to be honest. So let's go and have a look in that part of the woodland, go up to the viewpoint, and then I'll take you to this magnificent specimen of a tree. So that magnificent specimen of a Douglas fir is just back there, and before we head to my right into this dense part of woodland, I'd just like to show you guys this gorgeous honeysuckle which is just coming out into flower now. Absolutely loved by bees, this thing, and hawk moths as well. Moths really love it, and in the evening time it has the most gorgeous scent you can imagine. Absolutely perfect. Very good, nice dense cover as well for nesting birds, and it is a really good plant for so many insects. And of course, if you want some, you can get it as a climbing plant on the wildgarden.com online shop. So if I pan to my right, you can see this gorgeous grove of primarily Douglas fir. Again, another specimen similar in size to the one we've just looked at right in front of me. And another one to the right there. These monstrous trees, but they are nothing on what I'm about to show you guys in a minute, I can assure you. There's that monstrous tree back there. I love this little part of the tour, this little part of the garden. It's just full of mostly ferns, some bracken as you can see towards the back there, but a lot of ferns. And lots and lots and lots of wood sorrel, which is this beautiful little plant, looks like a clover leaf. It is in fact wood sorrel. And again we've got some figworts growing in the middle of it all. A few larch here either side of this path, gaining a little bit of altitude now, and you might be able to guess we are getting a little bit more exposed because things are blowing about a bit. And we are about to come up to one of the 3 vistas of this tour. Behind this little dry stone wall, through this little opening with a little slate path, you've got this lovely curved wall, which I'll show you over the top of in a second, and a little memorial to Captain Nelson, who was killed in action in 1917 and was one of the former owners of this house, part of the Nelson family. And now, if I hold the camera up there and pan round, you guys get to see this magnificent Loch Etive, which the house is on the edges of. Quite a stunning part of the world. Out that way and right into the distance it heads out towards Mull, the Isle of Mull. What a beautiful part of the world this is. We've got Connell just a few miles that way, and a bit further around the coast, about 15 minutes, we've got Oban, and it really is just delightful. And that was a purple hair streak that just flew off the top of the wall. I don't know if you saw that. It was just perched on this ivy. And I know it was a purple hair streak because that's an oak tree, and that is their favoured food plant. So they'll lay their eggs on the developing buds of oak trees. So how wonderful to see. That was an unexpected surprise, I can tell you. Right, let's head further into the deep dark wood. Hope we don't see any gruffaloes. Again, the lichens on these trees, they look dead, but this is a living lichen. It's absolutely gorgeous, like rust coloured. Lots and lots more ferns. Gorgeous lush green. And look back down there to the grove of Douglas firs, which this camera angle just doesn't do them justice. They are fabulous trees. Right, back to the track. This part just round the corner actually is possibly the most enchanting part of this walk. If you look up through there, it's just these stunted little oak trees. I mean, these oak trees, as I was saying before, because they're on the edge of the hill, they'll bear the most of the weather and the wind, and they're no more than 30-35 feet tall, but these could be 100 years old, even though they're 14-16 inches max across at the bottom, because of the climate, the altitude and the weather. Another beautiful rhododendron there, that's just gorgeous papery bark on that. But this really is quite enchanting through here, I think. Kind of mini grove of oak trees. And this rhododendron, which has these ginormous leaves, you see huge, great big leaf on that, and this gorgeous underside, like russet brown. As I say, guys, hope you're enjoying this tour. It's certainly been an incredible experience for myself and Nikki to stay here. I feel quite honoured to have been given the opportunity, but it's a honeymoon, and I think we're allowed to splash out a little bit on a honeymoon, so I'm very pleased to be able to bring you guys this tour. And here again, it's like this lovely kind of, it's not an open glade, but there are more open patches in the canopy. So I would love to know the population of purple hairstreaks here. Of course, we're right at the beginning, especially up in this part of the world, of the purple hairstreak flight season. So it'll be intriguing to be able to survey for them. But of course, how many people are looking up at the tops of oak trees in early and the middle of July? Not many, I wouldn't have thought. And we've got a nice sweet chestnut here, which is just about to come into flower, which is Castanea sativa. Oh, if you don't believe me. That's by no means a magnificently large specimen, but have these lovely serrated edges to the leaves. I love sweet chestnut, it's a great tree. There's a lot of it down in the local woods near me in Essex. And through there you might just be able to catch a glimpse of the house. Don't worry, I promise to show you it in a minute. Yeah, sweet chestnut, there's a fine specimen on the far side of the house, which I think we did look at briefly in the beginning of the video. This kind of open woodland setting, starting to go back downhill here. And you can see the loch just through there. If that's not a nice view, I don't know what is. Half hidden by the trees. Beautiful. That's actually the lower branch there, is the branch of a sweet chestnut, which is that tree down there, which has mostly died off on the tops, but standing deadwood, as you've probably heard me bang on about before, is a fine or fabulous habitat. And up there we've got another sweet chestnut as well, and through there is the tree that I'm going to show you in a moment. You can hear the herring gulls. There's a rather large colony of them on an island I'm about to show you. And what about this for a little place to come and sit? This dry stone wall capped with grasses and wildflowers, and over the edge of it you've got that amazing view. And a lot of the herring gulls, we've got a lot of herring gulls down on this side of the island, and on that smaller island over there there's quite a few pairs of lesser blackback gulls, so they kind of steer clear of each other a little bit. I've seen a few squabbles, but what a view, eh? Many an hour Nikki and I have spent looking over this beautiful loch, contemplating life. What a spot for it. Right, so if we leave this area now, more beautiful ferns growing in the wall and some wood sage. Take note of that, guys. I've got some of that to show you shortly. A few buttercups growing in the grass. As we approach the house now, and the tree I want to show you, there are these gardens are open to the public, so we might see one or two more people, just to let you know. But the gardens are only open on a Saturday, so just to inform you. That was obviously a mighty specimen of a Douglas fir where that stump is. And the tree I'd like to really show you is this one just here. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is the finest specimen of a Douglas fir I think you'll find anywhere in the world. It is absolutely ginormous. Each one of these limbs is 3 to 4 feet across, and it just goes skyward. And I mean, this thing must be 4, maybe 5 meters across at the base, and I actually couldn't believe it when we drove up the drive to see this tree. Now, these trees are native to the northwest part of America, the sort of Pacific coast, but they obviously do very well here in this temperate climate on these kind of coastal edges. And this tree is by no means the tallest tree. They will grow even taller than this. This is probably only about 60 feet tall. I say only, it's still impressive, but it's the girth and the age of this thing. I wouldn't like to hazard a guess as to how old this tree is. It's well over 500 years old, and certainly older than the house, which is just to my right, which we'll have a look at in a second. But these things do get rather large. I believe in America they can, and there have been 1 or 2 records of them reaching 120 meters, which is knocking 400 feet tall, so rivaling the redwood giants in America. So absolutely incredible to see. And quite honestly, I am in awe of this tree. Hi Dave. Yeah, you? Good. Yeah, it's been fabulous, thank you, yeah. Well, I just couldn't help myself, guys. My whole tree climbing days kicked in. I'm not going to go any higher, don't worry. I've not got my harness on, clearly, so I'm not going to risk a fall out of this beauty, but it's just incredible. The sheer scale of this tree, the enormity, and the volume of timber that this has held up for centuries is quite remarkable. It's like half a dozen trees in one. Phenomenal. It's very rare actually to see a tree that has just been left. Clearly this tree has never had any of the lower branches removed when it was planted. Quite often with parkland trees and estate trees, as they get bigger, some of the lower branches get taken off or either grazed by animals or just for access they are removed to create more of a standard shape. But this one, you can see, goes right out from near the base on all sides, and my goodness, what a colossal specimen it is. Well, possibly the biggest Douglas fir in the world in terms of girth, who knows. But now I just want to show you guys this incredible view from over here, which is where we've spent many a tea break, shall we say. And the sun's come out for the occasion. There's that island down there where we were just looking at from over there a moment ago. So this hillside drops away quite steeply, but what is very interesting is if you look just over the edge of the wall, it's absolutely covered in common spotted orchids, which is great to see, a nice little surprise. a lot of St. John's wort as well, the yellow plant you can see. Right, I'm going to leave this fabulous view for one last time, and we're going to head now over to the formal part of the gardens and just have a quick look round there before we have a look at this magnificent house from the front. So there's a quick glimpse of the house from the front. We'll get a proper look at it in a moment, but you can see that magnificent Douglas fir to the left for scale. And if we go now into this little terraced part of the garden, the last part of the tour, I'm sorry to say, and head down these beautifully mown terraces. And what I loved first off when I came in here is that lovely patch of yellow is greater birdfoot trefoil, which is one of my favourite pond plants. I plant around quite a few ponds. Does get quite big, as you can see, spreads a lot. And then into the mown area out the front of the house, we've got this lovely Rosa rugosa sweetbriar, which smells divine. The flower's just going over at the moment. Really lovely. And what I love as well is they've protected a willow sapling, but inadvertently protected a common spotted orchid as well, which is quite nice. This is all greater birdfoot trefoil, again growing along the base of this wall. And these are just a lovely part of the gardens. You can see the roses developing these rose hips now quite nicely. Looks like a little tomato, that one. This side we've got some potentilla. Lovely yellow plant. It's a very similar flower to the rock rose, if you're familiar with that. And look at these ferns growing in the wall. You can tell this garden is years and years old. The house was actually built in about 1850, not 1950. So there's at least 170 years of growth and natural spread. Here's a plant that I wanted to show you. Remember I said about the wood sage? You can see it has these lovely tiny discreet flowers, and that's being visited a lot by the common carder bees at the moment. They're really gingery bees, and you can see the sage shaped leaf, very nice. We've also got the Alchemilla mollis, where it's in the sun now. It is flowering very nicely. More roses. We've got some nice fuchsias in here. Postman's just turned up. And if I look to my right, you've got these beautiful acer trees there, and this is the mown lawn area where again yellow flag iris. Can't say I didn't warn you guys. And this mown area, well, I think it comes with an estate of this size. Now if it was me, you guys know what I'd do. I'd have a pond, another pond in the middle, and this would all be meadow. But I think there's an element of formality that is quite acceptable when you've got thousands of acres of wilderness a lot of the time. And on the deck down here we have a meadow brown, if I can get close enough. There he goes. So yes, I think there's a permissible element of formality to gardens of this scale, this grandeur. We've seen every other habitat there is going. We've seen scrubland, we've seen meadows, we've seen ponds, we've seen woodland, and that is another very, very beautiful specimen, very fine specimen of a Scots pine. That's possibly one of the most perfectly shaped Scots pines I've ever seen. Normally they're grown together in a clump, so of course they don't get the chance to spread out like that, but what a beautiful specimen that is. Now this plant, the name escapes me. I believe it's a type of sage, but I'll put the name in for you guys. I did look it up the other day, but completely forgotten what it is. Very lovely plant though. Got a camellia there. And this I just love. There's a little clipped yew hedge which obviously borders this set of stairs going down to the main formal lawn area, which has had a nice swallow or two skimming over this area, catching insects over the last few days, which is very nice. But this I just love, because in and amongst all of this, what has naturalised is this beautiful honeysuckle, and that's just been left to grow out the top. Many situations that would have just been cut to a box, but here there's a slightly more relaxed approach with all the ferns as well. It's absolutely beautiful. Go on then, and I'll show you the front of this house. So there's some more steps, and we'll go up to that terrace in a moment. That is Acre House, ladies and gentlemen, and isn't it magnificent? You can see why I picked it as a honeymoon destination. And the inside of that house is exactly as you'd expect it to be. Perfectly weathered. Oh, just an absolutely gorgeous house. We're going to have a look properly in a moment. Not inside. I don't think it would be very fair of me to show somebody's private home to the rest of the world. You've got more foxgloves growing either side of this mown area here. A few nice white irises. And these lovely naturalised heathers and ferns across the top of this wall. Isn't that just idyllic? Like the land that time forgot, I really do love seeing gardens like this that are so old. Like my good friend David Crossley's garden in Lancashire, where I have interviewed him and shown his garden that is 38 years old. Not quite the same length of time that these gardens have been established, but everything is so well naturalised. It's just beautiful. And all these heathers you can see growing. And then back to my right you can see this wonderful acer tree, which when the wind gets underneath it, these leaves really are orangey red. Absolutely gorgeous. Lovely white flower here of what is, I believe, possibly this smaller gunnera, although I stand to be corrected if you guys know what it is. Some lovely ferns again. More ferns again along the top of the wall. And here is some Solomon seal, which is not technically a wildflower, but I love it. There's a massive patch of it down near the driveway, and it has up until very recently been covered in these Solomon seal sawfly larvae, which again there's a few hiding under this leaf here. It's a shame really, because you expect them to be some kind of fabulous butterfly or moth, but alas, they are just a sawfly. I say just a sawfly, everything has its role in nature. Let's have a look into the understory of this acer, shall we? Wow. Covered in mosses and lichens. What a beautiful tree. There looks to be about 4 or 5 acers through here, making up one. Tree peony there. Bit more formality with these clipped yew hedges. I'm not sure what's under that. I'm not going to have a look. A few rushes naturalising themselves in these damp areas as well. And again, more of this wood sage just growing out the wall. Being visited, perfectly timed, by what looks to be an early bumblebee. Very nice. Yeah, wood sage, a really nice one. It's kind of like a mini salvia. Absolutely love that plant. Great for a shady area. Again, available on the Wildflower Garden online shop. Got a few lilies here that have finished flowering now. The odd foxglove. And an escallonia. And from here you get a nice view of the house actually. So you probably recognise this bit, guys. We are back down at the formal gardens where we first started the tour. Another beautiful acer tree there. And this cherry at the end, I mean, look at the lichens on that. Beautiful. And a few nettles and docks that have been left, which is nice. Nettles, obviously, the red admirals probably wouldn't be in here in such numbers if it wasn't for patches of these nettles. So really nice. And looking back through there now, you can see, I think we'll accept that as a mown lawn. What a lovely part of the garden. So let's go and have a look back up this top part of this terrace, up these lovely rock stepping stones, before we conclude the tour. Lovely part here. Got a lot of evening primroses which literally open up in the evening. Bees love those, and you can see the old stems from last year. Again, we looked at those earlier. Meadow brown, if you saw that fleeting glimpse, just round the base of this lovely hebe. Got some feverfew there, some irises as well. Nice fuchsias, lots of fuchsias here. Beautiful. More geraniums, Solomon seal again, and campanulas, which are just covered in soldier beetles. And this potentilla again being visited by some bumblebees. Lovely shrub, this potentilla. Hoverflies really enjoying it as well, and various insects. Another foxglove there, just clinging on. And we have some more foxgloves here, which again got another bee. I just finished, typically, just growing out of the wall there. And this spear thistle, which again, I love that it's been left, providing a nice source of nectar for the bees at this time of year. Spear thistle, very good for butterflies as well. Skippers will use it, meadow browns, ringlets. Most of the species we've seen today on this tour will use it. More evening primrose. This is a type of berberis, you can tell because of the size of the thorns. I mean, look at that, they're like 2-inch thorns, like blackthorn, and covered in berries now. It's finished flowering. Another tree peony, lots more evening primrose, and a lovely ceanothus on the end here, which is about to flower. Shame we've missed that, it's just so late up here. Compared to down south. Nice cotoneaster there. And some wild strawberry, really good plant for shade, that is. More Alchemilla mollis. And a quince at the end, which has a couple of flowers on it at the moment. Obviously quince used for making jelly. Can't say I've ever actually tried it, but and there that is this middle level terrace looking back towards the formal garden. Well guys, I really hope you have enjoyed this video today. It's been an absolute honour to be able to bring you these stunning grounds where we have had the fortune of all of this complex and the house to ourselves for the last week, which has been an absolute pleasure, and I just hope that this video has done these magnificent grounds some justice. We have seen all manner of habitats, as you've just seen, and do let me know your thoughts. Let me know which bits you've enjoyed the most, and of course if you've enjoyed watching this video of this very special garden tour with that splendid 170 plus year old house behind us. It's been absolutely delightful to be able to share it with you today. And if you've enjoyed this video, then stick around, because I have recently discovered that I have been granted access to an incredible property that Nikki knew when she was growing up, and it's just up the road from us in Essex. It is a 100-year-old house built in about the 1920s, and for at least the last 40 years has been derelict, and it's been left purely by the owners for wildlife, because there is about 5 or 6 acres that comes with this property. So we are going to be exploring this derelict house and some of the incredible grounds that surround this wonderful property. So do stick around and keep your eye on the channel for that video coming up. But I would like to end this video now by saying a huge thank you to you all for sticking with me until the very bitter end. It's been a pleasure showing you around these wonderful grounds today. We are now off down to the Lake District to finish off our honeymoon, and I am very grateful to you all for joining us. So stick around, lots more to come, guys. As always, feel free to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, then you will get notified every time I post a video like this one on all the different habitats you can find in the wider landscape, and of course all the ways in which you can help help wildlife in your own garden in videos to come. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon.